Everybody, Invisiblekatana here doing a review for Love, Simon. Of course, there will be spoilers as the title suggests, but I'll let you guys know once I get to that point. Starting off from the beginning, there will be, it'll be spoiler free and just kind of my overall thoughts of the film. I finally got to see it. It's like one of the few movies this entire year that's not nerd based. It's like this. I was gonna say Ready Player One, but that's dumb. This and Isle of Dogs, I think, are like the two non-nerd movies, and I can't even think of the name of the other one, but the movie where everybody has to be silent and it's got monsters and stuff. Those are like the three non-nerd movies where I'm like, I want to see that, and that's pretty much it. Everything else is either Deadpool, Ready Player One, Star Wars, or Marvel based, which technically Deadpool is as well. But this is one of the three that I wanted to see outside of it, and I'm glad I got to see it. It was a total fluke because I was doing something else, and I was like, oh, well, I can see it. I can just hop over to the theater and watch it. So I was glad I got to see it. It was definitely a funny movie, entertaining too, because I was like, I'm curious to see how this story plays out. Just from the trailers, it actually had me entertained. I was like, I want to see this movie. It seemed like it would actually be a really good story, and I definitely enjoyed it. I thought it was actually a really good story. It definitely seems like the type of story that is totally based off a book, but I don't think it is. But in a good way, I would say. But it's like a lot of stories like that, you can kind of tell. It's like, I feel like this was written, as an actual book, and then they just changed it. Just with the way it was done and how some of the characters are. Like some of the stuff you see is kind of funny, where it's like that is, a teenager's room. Just period. It's like generic teenager room. Just really funny to me. But I definitely love the movie. I thought it was acted fairly well, like across the board. I only knew like maybe three people, or actually like maybe three or four people out of like the whole film, and it was like not the main character and some of the other actors, but it was like, okay, I like all the actors in it. Everybody definitely played the role well. The story itself I thought was definitely entertaining, kind of watching this character go through this process of being trapped. I mean, obviously he hadn't come out to his family, so that was like the whole point. And then there's someone who is not necessarily outed, but comes out and it's just anonymous. So it's like, you have this guy where it's like, we're kind of in the same boat. We go to the same school. How do we make this work? How do we kind of help each other through, our own issues? So I thought it was definitely cool. And, just going through that whole process, it's, your normal story. I can't go into pretty much anything else without getting into spoilers, but I definitely recommend it. If you thought you were interested, definitely check it out. It's definitely funny. It's definitely a funny movie, but really good story as well. So highly recommend it if you haven't seen it yet. And of course, if you haven't seen it, you probably shouldn't keep going in this review because I'm officially getting to the spoiler discussion. But right off the top, like I said, as far as story-wise, I really enjoyed how it just started off, where it's like, all right, you have this guy who finds out that someone at his school is gay. And he's like, well, I'm going to get in touch with this person. It's anonymous, make up, my fake email and everything. And then it's just this back and forth trying to figure out, how do we both kind of get through this process of not being able to come out to, everyone that's around us, that sort of thing. And then it starts to get really intense when like the super crazy, like wannabe actor guy, blackmails him. And I was like, well, this is bad. And that kind of led to, I would say like the cliche stuff where it was like, okay, he's gonna get blackmailed. Of course, this guy wants to get with this person. They already established it like super early that two of his friends were into each other, and then later on we find out, which also is a little bit obvious, that his best friend, of course, was into him. But I was like, I know where this is gonna go based on the blackmail thing, and it was one of those things where you watch and it's just like, oh, I'm just waiting for this to blow up, but it was still entertaining. Just watching, it's like, man, how he's in such a crappy situation where it's like he doesn't want to be outed. This guy's an absolute douchebag for trying to blackmail him because he likes a girl. So it's just like, man, that sucks to watch. And he's going through this process, and as the movie goes on, he gets like little bits and pieces where it's like, oh, okay, this guy likes the Halloween Oreo, so he puts him in place as Blue. And then as it goes on, it's like, oh, maybe it was this guy because this experience that we had, we used to be in class together. And then maybe it's this guy because of him saying he was going out to where it's like there's no service or anything, and then he gets the email about it. So I like the way they handled that, where it was like, they put little bits and pieces here and there, and it's funny, like the very first person that he thought it was is exactly who it was. So I like that was kind of their little way of foreshadowing it, where it was just like, oh, that's totally it. It was him the whole time. So I like how that was handled, just going through that process where he's trying to figure out like, who is Blue, and as he goes through, and then of course when he's outed, and it's just like, things just completely fall apart. Like he stays away from his friends, and then of course because of that, his two friends do end up going out, and they realize why it took so long. And then his best friend, he ended up betraying, which I thought that was interesting, where he did say that he legitimately thought that his best friend was talking about the other guy in their group, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I thought he knew that it was about him and he was just lying, but he legitimately did not realize she was talking about him. And I was like, oh, I guess he just really did not get it at all. And I was like, oh, that kind of surprised me. I thought he was just being that crappy of a person. I was like, no, he was just actually oblivious. And he was like, oh, it was like, but we're us. And I was like, oh, he really didn't know. I was like, that part caught me off guard. I thought he got that bad, but he didn't. But I was like, that's kind of, I like the way it was handled. And, like I said, that was kind of the cliche part where I was like, I know that this is gonna, blow up in his face. And it just comes in like the worst way though. And that's what made it a little bit fresh, where it was like him being busted and his friends not liking him was because the other guy got mad at him. And it was like, he outs him and everything, which I'm surprised that there wasn't something where that just like destroyed that guy. Like, he was already like the nerdy dude who nobody liked anyway. And I'm like, you do that to somebody, that's just like, yeah, you get crucified for that sort of stuff. So I was kind of surprised that things kind of worked out okay for him, where people weren't just like losing their mind over how crappy of a person he really was. But oh well, I guess it was anonymous. That's why I forgot. But yeah, it was definitely interesting. Like, I enjoyed the way the movie kind of played out. Then of course they have the Ferris wheel, and I was like, I wonder if this is gonna have like a legitimate happy ending, or if it's gonna be like, sometimes real life just effing blows. But I was glad it had the happy ending. Some people get this reference, but he ended up with Kid Flash, so I was like, okay, that's cool. But yeah, I definitely love the way it was handled. The night he was outed, I thought that was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie, just him going through that process, and his sister finding out and him being mad at her, and like she cries and leaves, and he decides to tell his parents after. And then of course we see that distance that's created between them, and then slowly he's able to everything kind of comes back to normal, where he talks with his mom, and then he has a conversation with his dad, which I also thought was a really good scene, because his dad, he says like, all the jokes I made and stuff like that, and all this stuff that I should have known, because I'm your dad and you're my son. So I was like, I really like these scenes, very emotional, very heartfelt. So I was like, I liked all of that. So definitely a well acted movie. I feel like there's not too much to say about it. Just thought overall it was really good. Like, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, from the trailer it got me, and I was like, I want to see this movie, and I really enjoyed it. I was like, I'm definitely happy that I saw it. So like I said, my spoiler free segment of this, I would recommend it. I definitely enjoyed it. I think it's definitely a good film. I mean, I'm straight, so I'm like just generic. I just saw an entertaining movie, but I think this is definitely the type of movie that could be helpful for some people that are going through that same issue, where they don't feel like they can come out, even to friends, because like he even says like, I knew her for 6 months, so it was super easy, because it's like, meh, she kind of knows me, but we've known each other forever. It's just like a different thing. So I was like, that's I feel like it does handle, obviously not knowing personally, but I felt like from what I saw, it handled some interesting elements of it, like a lot of different layers of people having to come out, and who they choose to come out to, and why they would come out to this person that they aren't nearly as close to, and stuff like that. So I thought they did a good job kind of handling some of the different layers, and how it takes time to basically be outed, which is a crappy moment, and then kind of getting through that process, and going through basically dealing with everyone else kind of just knowing. Now it's like, you don't even really, it's hard to even call it acceptance. It's just like, crap, I'm stuck with it, because I didn't get to choose. So I feel like they handled it in a pretty good way, personally speaking. But obviously that's coming from like just a normal generic straight dude, so I don't really know personally. But just watching it as a film, I thought they did a good job with it. But I thought it was good. Definitely overall, I thought it was a really fun movie. Funny. Story itself was definitely entertaining. But of course, I would love to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about the movie, your least favorite parts about it, and in general, just want to know what you guys thought about the story. It's definitely an interesting love story. It was like a weird sort of pseudo mystery love story by the end, and I was like, that's definitely cool. I like the way it was handled, and everybody's there, and it's just like, oh, it's he's going round and around and around, and it's like, that's tough. But of course, you gotta end the movie with a happy ending. So of course, that's how that goes, and then everybody's cool at the end, and they ride off to the city, which I thought was a cool way to end it, where it's like, that's them leaving like their little town, and then they go out into the rest of the world, because everything's kind of bright, and it's great, everything's good. So I think that's a nice, that's like the perfect cheery, happy ending. Everything worked out perfectly, and now we're off to the big city. I thought it was like, that's kind of how they did that, where it goes above the trees and you see like the rest of the world. It's not just that little that little segment. So good little visual thing at the end that I enjoyed. That's just from like a storytelling standpoint. I was like, oh, the rest of the world. But yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed the movie. Would love to know what you guys thought about it, so please put your comments down in the comment section below, and of course, thanks for watching.